Chapter 14 still. I wanted to... 15 or 14? Excellent. So, I wanted to take a step back and sort of give you maybe a summary of how I've been presenting the material. As I read Revelation, this is kind of just real quickly what I see, because we spend so long in each chapter that sometimes we lose our place in what's been going on. So just real quickly, what I see is that we're looking at 7 parallel cycles rather than one linear narrative. I could be wrong in this, but what I see is that each vision that we have seems to be a vision of the entire what has been termed the gospel age. I think chapter 13, though, does dip back into the history of Israel as well, with the woman, the early history of Israel. But if I could maybe lay this out for you, what I see is the first chapters 1 through 3 present John's vision of Christ in the midst of the church. I think we saw that pretty clearly. His care of the church, his provision for the church. And then also, in that we see a complete picture of, in his letters to the 7 churches, we also see a complete picture of the state of various churches throughout the gospel age. And we discussed that. Second, chapters 4 through 7 describe the opening of the book, or the scroll with the 7 seals. And I think we see a pretty complete picture of God's decrees, his plan for redemptive history, his plan for the churches. 8 through 11 record the sounding of the trumpets. It's a parallel vision of his will being enacted, his plans being carried out at various points throughout history and in various ways. And third, we see a vision of the spiritual battle. Chapters 12 through 14, the war between the dragon and his helpers and the saints of God. As we move into chapters 15 through 16, we'll see the outpouring of the 7 vials of God's wrath. And then chapters 17 through 19 is going to talk about the fall of the great harlot and the beast. And then the book concludes in chapters 20 through 22 with not really a parallel vision, but a vision of the new heaven and the new earth. So in that, as we looked at chapter 13, latter half, I would say even the latter half of chapter 12 through chapter 13, as we've discussed, we saw the dragon and his 2 beasts, both the spiritual might and the military might of the 2 beasts, and how the dragon is waging his war on the saints. And if the narrative stopped there, it would look pretty desperate. But as we talked about, as we get to 14, we then pivot and we see this battle from the standpoint of heaven, I would suggest to you. And so, once again, I know we've done this twice now, but once again, let's just read chapter 14, and we'll say a couple words on the first couple paragraphs. We'll just do some recap, and then we're going to focus on the latter half of 14 here. And as always, we'll take the discussion wherever it goes. Really, we'll You guys want to talk about something? We'll talk about that. So, and I'm glad you guys have picked up on that we're, open and free to do that. So let's go ahead and read chapter 14. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to read, just to move us through it, I'm going to read verses 1 through 13. And then if someone could pick up 14 through 16, and then another person 17 through the end. So I'll start us off by reading verses 1 through 13. And I'll even put on my glasses for this. So, then I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000, who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the roar of many waters, like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they were singing a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. It is these who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits of God and the Lamb. In their mouth no lie was found, for they are blameless. Then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who dwell on earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. And he said with a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water." Another angel, a second, followed, saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality." And another angel, a third, followed, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest, day or night, these worshipers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the mark of its name. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed, says the Lord, for they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow them."
And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, the one who has power over fire, came out from the altar, and he called with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, "Put in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe." So the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vine of the earth, threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out from the winepress up to the horses' bridles for a distance of 200 miles.
All right. So we began last week to just, well, before I talk, comments, thoughts, maybe things that came into your mind or after last week's discussion, or since we've been gone? Go ahead.
I, as a Christian, I'm thankful that God has put it into my heart to believe this stuff even though I don't understand.
Right.
That's like a commitment that a Christian ought to have. Try to understand it, to see what's going on here. And some of it just seems so out of reach. I see so much hope.
Yeah.
And stuff here like angels and stuff. There's stuff going on. We have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
In places for our benefit. It's a wonderful thought to know that. But I want to ask you who this 144,000 is. Do you know?
My belief is, and there's a lot of debate on this, I believe that this is representative of the saints, both those who died in anticipation of a coming Messiah, that he would redeem Israel, and those who, like you and I, who have that faith in Jesus Christ. I believe that's representative of. Now, there's a slight narrative problem with that if we were to take this all very literally, because I think we also see in the last half of this chapter the reaping of the saint, the bringing in of saints, and the so there's, are we there? Are we here? So I think what we're seeing is those who have been sealed by the Lamb, and then the fate of the followers of the beast. The common, I would say that the common belief is that the predominant belief in the United States is that these are simply 144,000 Jewish witnesses or evangelists, or as Hal Lindsey said, like Billy Graham types. But I don't necessarily see that, because I don't see them either in this or in the previous chapter doing an evangelistic work. These 144,000 are seen as worshiping the Lamb. They've been redeemed out of the earth. They've been made righteous. They've been made spotless and clean. So folks who say it's I'm going to give you some extreme examples. Those who say it's the saints, both of Israel and you and I today, they do this math thing that, I don't know, it feels like a bit of a stretch. They say, well, it does and it doesn't. They say it represents 12 tribes of Israel, and then 12 representing the 12 disciples. And so that's representative of the new church, the old church. And then they do 12 times 12, and then they multiply it by 1,000. And I like the 12 times 12, but then I don't know where the 1,000 comes from. So, but we do see, I do see, we see the 24 elders at the beginning of the book. And that does seem to represent the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12, representative of the 12 disciples. And there's a sense in which these are their people. And there's pretty broad, I should clarify, there's pretty broad consensus that this group of 144,000 is all of the saints, all of the people of God, but more dispensational, less reformed view is that there's two different groups of 144,000. That's kind of an extreme position. Just throwing it out there. My belief after reading this text time and time again is this is a hyperbolic number a symbolic number also of just the people of God, and he's showing that we are sealed in opposition to those who have the mark of the beast on them. I think it's a contrast and a comparison. So I think these are saints. I think these are saints. I think what's worth exploring is, and I don't know if it even matters, but what would be interesting to explore is this: saints who have died before the day of judgment, and they're resting, as it were, in the bosom of Abraham? Or is this just representative of all saints of all time? I don't know. But so that's where I'm standing right now. Again, one guy with one opinion in 2,000-year history. So I could be wrong. Yeah. I don't hold with those who kind of try to cut Israel out, because as we've discussed a lot, this is very much a book to Jewish Christians. This is a book steeped in Jewish prophecy and tradition and thinking, most importantly. So
Yeah, I agree with Vicky that this is very hard to understand, and you probably won't know for sure. It is kind of interesting that where the 144 is 12 squared.
yeah,
I'm not saying there's any mathematical proof of anything, because there isn't.
right.
But he talked before about, we know that the church is built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets.
Yes.
So that's 24.
Yeah.
That's 12 plus 12.
Right.
But this is
12 times 12.
Multiply by 1,000, you got a big number. 1,000, I think, in the Old Testament original language doesn't represent 1,000. The word, it represents a large.
Oh, interesting.
Almost an uncountable number. I'll ask Aaron if that's possibly correct. Yeah.
Oh, so that.
So we're talking about two large numbers that are one. And, I'm personally in great hopes. I'm praying this, and I see movement. The more I look into it, that there's going to be a revival within the Jewish community. They're not that far away from us, except that they don't think the Messiah is coming. But they're looking for a lot of the same things we are eventually. And I just think that all of a sudden there's going to begin to be a increasing number who say, well, this Jesus is Jewish, he's worthy of following, and what he is doing is prophesied in the Jewish, the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
And I'm doing some work right now that I'm just seeing the layers of it.
Yeah, and I think I really see a lot of hope for that. I don't know if hope's the word I'm looking for, but I see hints at something along those lines, actually. And I haven't heard anyone else mention this, but in chapter 12, and where I really see in the woman, I see Israel. And she is still, we don't necessarily get this picture of just an automatic salvation, but she is being cared for. She is being taken care of in the wilderness. And I think there's something in that. I think there's a plan. There's something, whether it's a great awakening or so we see the 144,000. A couple things I wanted to point out about the 144,000 is some characteristics of them. They have not defiled themselves, first off. Now, we already know from Scripture that no one is sinless. So what could we say about, and they talk about virgins, but they're using this Old Testament language of faithfulness to God. This is not that they've never been with a woman. So what could we say about this fact that they have not defiled themselves with virgins? Thinking of maybe some Old Testament language, I'm thinking Leviticus 17, 7, which describes unfaithfulness as adultery. But think of it in a positive light. What could that tell us about this 144,000? I think 2 Corinthians 11, 12 may be of some help there.
I think they're covenant keepers.
Yeah.
Not in the sense necessarily of ritual, but in the sense of basic commitment to God's order.
Yes.
Which includes faithfulness in marriage, avoiding covenant in marriage, which is the only thing that will guarantee that a marriage will continue through life. I mean, it's not just because this man and this woman get along pretty good, that's not the basis for marriage. It's covenant.
Yeah.
Commitment for life.
It is.
I think that's what chastity is.
Yeah. 2 Corinthians 11:12. For I am jealous with you with a godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ.
I agree with Frank. I think this is so much moving in that direction also. That so many places in Scripture we find that sexual immorality is used by God as a reference and likened to just simple unfaithfulness to Him. I mean, we see so much in Scripture of that a marriage supper of the Lamb that talks about consummation. Everything seems to be, excuse me, not everything, but there are many things that God uses this idea of sexual immorality as to liken this to what we do with Him. It's that important, in other words. I mean, my faithfulness to my wife is so important. Can't you see this, Christian? This is how God is telling me this. This is how I want you to behave toward me. As though it's as important, even more important than that.
Yeah.
So this moves our thinking in a way, I believe, that brings this book of Revelation here to a high level of importance. Pay attention. You may not understand everything there, Christian, but know this. I love my people, and I am going to fight for them. And if they're unfaithful to me, I'm going to bring them back.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That whole thought is just wonderful. It's a great assurance.
And if I could double down on that again, I've been reading this biography, and it's on Jonathan Edwards. And after his marriage, he was contemplating on the union between a man and a woman and the closeness, the intense closeness of. And I can think of it now, having been married for, just 22 years, and I'm sure some of you guys have got quite a few more years on us there. But the level of closeness and intensity and sweetness of fellowship, not every single day, obviously. Some days I'm just unruly, but the closeness, Jonathan Edwards was thinking about that, how great it was and how awesome it was with his wife. And he was thinking, if God's relationship to us is more important than this, how much greater and intense can we look forward to that relationship in heaven? And I thought that was a pretty startling thought, that I never thought of it in those terms. We often think of it in the negative imperative, like this is that important to you. Don't hurt me. Don't violate me in that way. But he thought about it from the other end as well, which I found challenging and exciting, was if it's this good now with my wife, Imagine how good it is with him in heaven. And I don't know. It's an exciting thought. Also, another thing. Well, yeah. Boy, we could spend so much time on each one of these points. They are, in verse 4, they are committed followers of Christ. Why do I say that? Verse 4. Wherever he goes. You know, and John 10:27. Jesus is the great shepherd. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And so it makes sense that the 144,000 go wherever Christ goes. Pretty straightforward. Christ says jump, we say how high. And fourth, they are faultless. Or 3, they are guileless. There's no guile in them. Their yes is yes, their no is no. There's no ulterior motive. They don't lie. Verse that came to my mind was 1 John 2:22. Those, is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, anyone who denies Christ has come in the flesh is a liar. They so just one thought on that, just one minor little thought on that is Christ. They acknowledge Christ came in the flesh. They acknowledge that they are sinners. He who says they have no sin, they're a liar. The devil is a liar. Isaiah 53:9. Those who dwell in Zion are like their Lord. In their mouth is found no deceit. And then fourth, they're faultless. Verse 14:5 says 144,000 are without fault before the throne of God. I'm reminded of Hebrews 12:23. The spirits of just men are made faultless. Made faultless. Just men don't make them faultless. They're made faultless. So just a couple thoughts to consider. Still, maybe we may not nail down exactly who the 144,000 is, but we've got a pretty good character profile of them here. I think that yes. The 4 living beasts. They are in heaven. They are spiritual creatures that praise and worship the Lord. I don't know who the 4 living beasts are, to be honest with you. I don't know. They sound incredible. Yeah. We saw them earlier in the book, praising the Lord, surrounding the throne. Guys, oh man, time is really against us. I had hoped to get to the last half of 14 today. Any other thoughts before I do a quick fast forward? All right, I'll give you some highlights here. We then transitioned to the message to the angels. We talked about that some, bringing 3 warnings, three messages to the world. Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of judgment is come. Worship him who made heaven and earth and the sea and the springs of water. I think we can read this in light of Romans 1, in which we see that the world has rejected God, the creator, and instead is worshiping the creation. And so this message is, if I could say, anathema to the natural heart of man. Stop worshiping the creation or the creations of your own imagination. Worship the Creator, fear Him, respect Him, revere Him. The second angel shows up, says, fallen, fallen is Babylon. Fallen is Babylon. If we know our Old Testament text, we know that Babylon is both a physical place, but also an emblem of it's sort of the anti-Jerusalem. All that is corrupt is the seat of corrupt government, the throne of Beelzebub, the eternal persecutor of God's people, as it were. I mean, even in Revelation, when we saw the two witnesses, you see that Babylon, even in that text, Babylon, it says, is that city of old, and it describes it being in various places. And so we get the sense that this Babylon that has fallen is this world system that is in opposition, that is fighting God and His will and His ways and His gospel. And the message is from heaven, Babylon is fallen. Babylon is fallen. And then finally, a third angel shows up and drives the point home. If anyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb. And if I move quickly ahead, we see the Lamb who was slain. We saw him earlier in the text. But also we know that, well, I'll just say this. He's basically saying those who reject the Lamb who suffered God's wrath, if we could think about this, what we know of the gospel, he's in effect saying, those who've rejected the Lamb who suffered God's wrath on our behalf will suffer God's wrath. And later in this chapter, we're going to see the angel who has charge over the fire in the holy temple. Well, what does that mean? Well, the one who had charge over the fire in the temple burned the sacrificial lambs. He delivers a message from God the Father to the one who sits on the cloud and says, the time has come, reap. And so we get this picture of the wrath, eternal judgment. That you have rejected the price paid, so now you have to pay the price. That is the third message. And let's quickly look, chapter 14. Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, seated on the cloud, one like a son of man. If you remember your Daniel, this is Christ, one like a son of man. The term son of man is used 88 times in the New Testament. 87 of those times, it's in reference, it comes from Jesus' own mouth. It was his chosen title for himself, his preferred name for himself. And he takes that from Daniel, who saw one like a son of man. And so some may say, well, it's not son of man, it's one like a son of man. No, this is Christ. This is Christ. I'll thumb wrestle you over this one. This is Christ, okay? Coming in his Shekinah glory, one like a son of man. And John, if anybody knew Christ, it would be, if any earthly person really knew Christ and could recognize him, I'd say John would be one of them, don't you? The one who had that tight bond with Christ, that friendship, that the one that whom Christ loved. And he's pulling right out of Daniel here. It's one like a son of man seated. And some people will resist. There's a lot of coming and going in this chapter, of angels coming, delivering messages, doing this, that, and the other. And some will say, well, this angel takes order from another angel, so it can't be Christ. Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and seated on the cloud, one like a son of man, with a golden crown on his head. This is not the crown of a competitor. This is not the crown of a king. This is not a diadem, as it were. I have the word written down here. Let me see if I can find that. There's two words for a crown. This is the crown of a victor, not a diadem. I don't know if the word is important to you, but this is a Stephanos, is the word. It is a crown of someone who has been victorious. Certainly Christ is a king, but this is symbolizing his victory over death, his victory over sin. So he's coming in this white cloud. I think this is the Shekinah glory, seated on a throne with the crown of a victor. And another angel came out of the temple, calling with a loud voice to him who sat on the crown, "Put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come." So what is this telling us? Well, Christ told us himself that even he would defer to the Father on the hour of his second coming, the hour of judgment. And so I think what we see here is we have a picture of this angel delivering a message from the Father to God the Son, saying, now is the time. Now is the time to put in your sickle. So Matthew, oh boy, there's so many good references. Christ talked about this himself, Matthew 13:40-3. Mark, the reference I was looking for was Mark 13:32, in which Christ says that the word will come from the Father when the time is right. And oh boy, guys, we're running out of time here. So we will pick up in verse 17 next week and move on to the glassy sea. And as we read through this, we come up with questions, comments. I encourage you to write them down, and we'll discuss them. And sorry I had to go rapid fire, but I don't want to miss a bunch of stuff, so we're just going to stop there and give it our full attention.
Are we in a hurry?
No, I just don't want to put you guys to sleep. No. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but we don't have a deadline. I'd like to finish the book by this year. That's by the end of, 2023. But, yeah. All right, guys, we'll do it again next week. Provided the Lord doesn't come. And then maybe we could